Uh, you know, the title of this program is Save Democracy, Resist Tyranny. Am I audible?
Yep.
Okay. The title of this program is Save Democracy, Resist Tyranny. I believe that I work in one aspect of this whole process, or rather, I'm attempting to, me and the organization that I represent, which is called Alt News, we are attempting to work in one aspect of this process, which is information. You know, how is information controlled, and how does information play a role in increasing tyranny? And that is the aspect that Alt News has been attempting to work for the past 7 years. We started, 6-7 years, we started in 2017. So how is information important in our lives? What does information do? I believe information, when we have information about something, then it broadens our perspectives. It opens new worlds to us. It enables us to think about different things. So, for example, how many of you here know that 26 children died in a hospital in Maharashtra? Can you raise your hands? So, that is roughly about 30%. I saw about 25 to 30% people raise hands that they know that 26 children have died in a hospital in Maharashtra. But don't we think that when and this is not limited to just one hospital, it has gone beyond. So don't we think that when something that catastrophic happens, 100% of us should have known that 26 children have died in a hospital in Maharashtra? And why is that we don't know? Why is that we don't know when atrocities are being committed in Manipur? Why is that we don't know what is happening in some parts of Kashmir? Why is that we don't know about many economic issues that are happening in this country? And the primary reason for that is because the world we live in at this point of time, the information that you receive is highly controlled. What you see and what you don't see is controlled at every level. And today I'll attempt to talk about how it is being controlled. How is that the information that we receive is controlled, and why it is important to break out of this mold. If we are attempting to do this, that is, if we are attempting to resist tyranny, then I believe it is important to break out of this mold, this ecosystem, the information ecosystem that has been created, that we are consuming. Unless we break out of that, then we are essentially continuous subjects of propaganda. I'm not necessarily talking about people in this room. There are many activists, etc., who may know better than a common person on the road. I'm talking about this whole information ecosystem which has been created to influence the world around us. So, in today's age, how many of you, please raise your hands if you spend more than 2 hours on your mobile phone? How many of you spend more than 2 hours on your mobile phone? Almost 100% of the hands. So 100% of the hands spend 2 hours on your mobile phone. About 25% knew, what happened in Maharashtra. Maybe 30% knew what happened in Maharashtra. Now, why is this happening? Why is that we are accessing a device which is essentially to consume information, right? When we are accessing this device, what we are doing is consuming information 24/7, or at least as many hours. I was recently in a school in Calcutta. We are trying to do some work with school children in Calcutta, and I asked them, how many hours do you look at social media? There were kids who were looking at social media 5-6 hours. So they're consuming information all the time. Now, information is reaching us in different ways. One is mainstream media, okay, and I'm mainly talking about news information. My primary focus here is news information. Information is reaching us in 3 primary ways. One is mainstream media, one is social media, and third is messaging apps. The old times when we used to talk to each other and exchange information, that still exists but has reduced a lot. most of the information that we consume are from these three sources: mainstream media, social media, and messaging apps. Now, to control what information we receive, you have to control these three elements. And how is this whole apparatus controlling these three elements? That is the question. I mean, nothing that I'm saying here is new, but I'm just attempting sort of put everything together, what I understood in the past 5-6 years of doing the work I do. So recently you must have heard of Adani taking over NDTV, right? NDTV was bought over by Adani. And within a few days, all the prominent journalists who I watched as a kid, from Srinivasan Jain to Nidhi Razdan to all of them, they all had to quit. Why did they quit? They quit because, unfortunately for Adani, as soon as Adani took over NDTV, the Hindenburg thing happened. The Hindenburg allegations came, where multiple allegations were made against Adani as a company as to what sort of malpractices they are involved in. And when these journalists went to, I forget the name of the managing editor now, but who was authority that, hey, these allegations have come and it is important to talk about it, they were not allowed to run that story. So obviously these, I'm not saying NDTV is the bastion of the best journalism, but it was a good force, I believe. And because they were not allowed to run these stories, you saw one resignation after another resignation. And in the end, NDTV did not show those, except running a little bit here and there, but the allegations against Adani were not shown on an Adani owned channel. So how did NDTV, who we have sort of known for so many years, get control? By one simple step, that a corporate body that was close to the government came and bought it. And where have we landed after that? If a child that is born, let's say in the last 7-8 years, is just starting to sort of understand the world, maybe 10-11 years, maybe that is the time when children start looking at news, etc. Let's say a 13-year-old child today switches on TV and goes to a news channel. Can you name one Delhi-centric news channel which is not pro-government? One. Anyone here? One Delhi-centric news channel which is not pro-government. So basically what we are saying is that a 13-year-old child, when they go and switch on the TV, all they will hear is pro-government news. What does that mean? What does pro-government news mean in this era? Pro-government news means in this era is extolling the Prime Minister, the Home Minister, and so on and so forth. Second, running propaganda against the minorities, running hate propaganda against the minorities. And third, saying that India is the best country in the world and everything is good in India. These are the three primary topics that the mainstream media talks about. Now, a child which is watching that, and these media channels, they call themselves nationalistic. Arnab Goswami's every third word is "I'm nationalistic." So when a 13-year-old child watches this, he's switching on one TV channel, switching on to another TV channel, there is no difference. It is all the same. So then what does this child grow up with? This child grows up, he watches Sudhir Chaudhary on Aaj Tak, then switches, watches Amish Devgan on News 18, then switches, watches somebody else on some other channel. Each one of these channels, they will be talking about these things, and that child will think that, minorities are a real issue in this country, that because of minorities, I am not getting the job that I am entitled to. I am not getting some social benefit that I am entitled to. So the whole of mainstream media at this point of time are controlled either two ways. One, through these Reliance of the world or the Adanis of the world have bought them, or they are run by political entities like maybe the Sakshi here, etc., which are run by political entities. So you either have corporate control, and these are not chota mota corporates, these are huge corporates. These are huge corporates which are absolutely, working very, very closely with the government. So either they are controlled by the corporates or they are controlled by the by political entities. Now, you may ask, why this is happening? Why are the media organizations allowing themselves to be controlled? What has changed so drastically that they are allowing themselves to be controlled? I think the story is that of the business of mainstream media in India. The mainstream media in India depends on advertisements. Each one of them depend on advertisements. Only those who get advertisements will be able to survive and will be able to continue, and advertisements are controlled by political entities. So let's say, how many of you like Telegraph here? Raise your hands. The Telegraph newspaper. A lot of you like Telegraph, right? Because it writes a lot of bold headlines. Who owns Telegraph Group? ABP, Anandabazar Patrika. ABP also runs other channels like ABP Delhi, ABP Hindi. One popular news anchor, her name is Rubika Liaquat. She till recently used to be in ABP Hindi, which is essentially. And that used to do a complete propaganda which was favoring BJP, while Telegraph, which sits in Calcutta, which sits in a non-BJP state, does a complete opposite thing, which is anti. Same owner in Delhi, they will tell you Modi is good. In Calcutta, they'll tell you Modi is bad. Same owner. So why does Telegraph or ABP, the Bengali version, which is called Anandabazar Patrika, why do they have to be sort of anti-Modi in Calcutta and then pro-Modi in Delhi? Because in Delhi, to get ads, you have to be pro-Modi. In Calcutta, for Mamata to give them ads, they have to be anti-Modi. So that is the business of media. Now, but there is a further problem in mainstream media, where the perversion is not just limited to who's owning them and the business of media. The further problem is that this government has ensured that the most toxic news anchors are the most popular ones. Every particular news channel, the most popular, the prime time anchors, except for one or two, are the most toxic anchors. Because it is not only indirectly controlling the news cycle through control of advertisements, it is also directly controlling the news cycle by making phone calls that, hey, why did you run the story today? How dare you run the story today? Many of you may not know that some old stories on online websites which are critical of the government, old stories like when our Prime Minister was the Chief Minister of my state. I come from Gujarat, I grew up in Ahmedabad. There are some old stories which have been deleted. You won't find those stories because news organizations have gone back and deleted some of these stories. So mainstream media, okay, so I was talking about the point about how, yes, there is this control through advertisements, but there is also this active perversion that is happening in mainstream media where they don't need to go to this level, but because there's so much government control, everybody who's on the forefront is filled with one single ideological leaning. So whether it is Amish Devgan, Sudhir Chaudhary, etc., they all belong to one particular ideological sort of bandwagon, and they are at the forefront. So whatever you see, and they are at the forefront as in they are editors, they are very, very senior editors. So it is not just what show they are doing, what information other anchors are showing is also controlled by them, because they are essentially controlling what to show on the channels. So in terms of means of information, we have the mainstream TV media completely controlled. The newspapers are somewhat better. Hindu is probably better than a Times of India. For example, those who have subscribed to Hindu would have read a story yesterday. How many of you heard of the raids in Delhi on NewsClick, where 46 people, many of you read, right? Now, a crucial story around this is, what is the allegation? The allegation is that NewsClick, which I think it goes by PPK NewsClick Private Limited, that is the name of the company, that has received funds from a company in the US, which is run by one Neville Singham. Okay, and it is being claimed that China is pumping money into this American company, and American company is pumping money into NewsClick, and NewsClick is doing some pro-China stuff, which has been termed as terrorism. They have been, the two people have been booked under UAPA. Even without going into the allegations, even going into the veracity of the allegations, if one were to write a pro-China article, that is not equivalent to picking up a gun. You know, you cannot call it terrorism. You cannot book someone under terrorism. Let's say even if all the allegations were true, they are not true. From what I know and understand, they are not true. But even if all the allegations were true, and if somebody wrote a pro-China article, then that cannot be called terrorism. And if it is called terrorism, then why hasn't India approached China and said, hey, you people, you are promoting terrorism in India? India does all that all the time with Pakistan, right? That India goes to Pakistan and says, hey, you are promoting terrorism in India. If NewsClick's founder is booked under a terrorist charge, then the first thing should be a diplomatic fallout, that India should go to China is like, why are you promoting terrorism in India? That has not happened. So, but now those who would have read Hindu, they have multiple newspapers, those who would have read Hindu would have read a critical article on this issue, which is the statement by this American company on this issue, and which says that there is a company called ThoughtWorks. ThoughtWorks is an equivalent of Infosys. Okay, there's a company called ThoughtWorks. Infosys, so the way these service companies work, Infosys, etc., is that, let's say if I am a software engineer, which I was for 15 years, if I am a software engineer and I am doing a project for a Citibank, and Citibank used to be a long-term Infosys customer, then Citibank will give X amount of dollars per hour for me to Infosys. ThoughtWorks used to, that X amount of dollars that ThoughtWorks used to get used to be more than Infosys. It was quite a valued service company. That was bought over by a British company at some point in time, I forget the year. The money, and this person Neville Singham used to own this company called ThoughtWorks. Now that money was invested in was put in a foundation, and that foundation started giving out money to different media companies around the world. This is the story that you would have known had you read the Hindu article. Now that those who have not read the Hindu article, they would not know the story. Here people may not believe the allegations, but you still would be confused. So again, coming back, I'm telling you the story because I also want to show how information, every single news channel spoke about the NewsClick arrest. Every single news channel showed, oh, Prabir Purkhaso is getting money from China. But when a statement came out which is possibly proving that that is not the truth, that was not broadcasted. So that is control. That is control of information, that show selectivity of information. That is show what you want to show, ensure that what you don't want to be shown is never shown. So this is what happened with NewsClick. So now you have TV channels, you have newspapers. What is happening in the digital space? That is the third new space that we have. The digital space is owned by the same people who are owning TV. So news18.com is News18 TV, republicworld.com is Republic, NDTV. So pretty much the control is the same, but in digital space there is some more freedom for other news organizations to come up, like Alt News or a Wire or a News Laundry, because it takes very little investment to start a website. It takes just a lot of labor. People put in labor, start websites, do the work, and when they attempt to puncture the narrative that has been there. So then how do you control that? You have controlled everything. How do you control that? You jail these people. So my the co-founder of Alt News, Mohammed Zubair, spent 23 days in jail. There have been multiple raids on News Laundry. There have been multiple raids on Wire. Every single independent news organization is going through everyday harassment. Everyday harassment, there's either a notice from income tax, there's this or that. So every day we are dealing with tons and tons of paperwork just to keep replying to these demands. So when do we do the actual work? They essentially bury us under paperwork that we can't actually do the actual work. So you control all of media, and if there are some alternative media organizations which are trying to do their work, ensure put all your institutions behind them so that they can't do their work. So now let's come to the second source of information, that is social media. We have mainstream media primarily sort of discussed. Social media, how this 2 hours of time that you are spending on social media is supposed to be free and democratic. But is it free and democratic? That is the question. And why is it not? Why is social media, which gave us the enormous promise that, oh, this will democratize information, why has it failed to democratize information? And the reason for that is multifold. One is, again, how social media works. We'll again go back into the issue of business of social media. Do you pay money to look at social media? You don't pay money to look at social media. So social media has to earn money somehow, right? How does social media earn money? By ensuring that the 2 hours that you are spending on social media today, next year it should be 3 hours, and the year after it should be 4 hours. Why? Why do they want to ensure that you spend more and more time on social media? Because the amount of time you spend on social media is directly proportional to the amount of advertisements you see on social media. The amount of advertisements you see on social media is directly proportional to the amount of money they make. So if you spend more time on social media, they will make more money. That is a simple business model, right? So now how will social media make more money? By ensuring that you spend more time on social media. Now how does one do that? How does one ensure that we stay hooked to this device day in and day out? That is where algorithms come into picture. Algorithm, I'm sure there's a few tech people here, but just to clarify, algorithm is essentially a piece of software which will take in various inputs. It will take in inputs, it will figure out what our habits are, right? So let's say if I go and like a post which says vaccines don't work, so the algorithm has figured out that I belong to the anti-vaccine sort of group. If I go and like a post which says the earth is flat, then the algorithm knows that I belong to the earth is flat category. So every time you do any single action on social media, like, share, etc., these algorithms are learning about your individual habits, not even group habits. It is absolutely individual habits. There's an individual profile of yours which is maintained in databases in these social media companies. Now, once they know what you like, what you dislike, it becomes very easy to serve content that, oh, this person likes this, let's serve it a little more of this content. This person likes this, let's serve a little more of that content. Okay? So it will study you and it will keep serving content which you like. But how is that problematic? It becomes problematic because then you don't get diverse perspectives. If we were not living in a social media world, if we get down and have chai and if we start talking, then I'll talk to one person, I'll talk to another person, I'll talk to a third person, and I will get 3 different perspectives. Because social media is serving information which you want and not which is coming organically, then you're getting very limited perspectives. And in that case, let's say if you believe in love jihad, okay? Let's say if I believe that Muslim men are forcibly marrying Hindu women and getting them converted to Islam, and that it is a real thing. Let's say if I believe in that, if I go and like one post somewhere, it could be, and we are not even coming to the aspect whether this information is true or not. There's some information out there where I go and like a post saying, which says that this particular Hindu woman has been forcibly sort of converted to Islam, and this has been done by a Muslim man. Now, once the algorithm has figured out that, oh, I believe in this, then I'll be given more of that. So when it comes to conspiracy theories, this serving of content which you like becomes extremely dangerous, because then you keep going into a darker and darker place, because that is all you consume. You know, that becomes your information ecosystem. And that is what social media companies have done in terms of algorithm, and are not willing to change, because that is how they earn money. So there is a basic problem in the way the social media, the whole ecosystem is designed. That is, it is designed to maximize your participation there so that they make money, and this process of maximizing your participation in social media is where the algorithms are playing the roles. There are books and articles written about it, about how problematic these algorithms are. Like, just till about 2 years ago, if you go on YouTube and if you see one video which says vaccines don't work, you know, there's a next video, the recommendation video. The next would be vaccines don't work, the next would be vaccines don't work. By the time you're done watching 10 videos, you're completely convinced that vaccines don't work, and then you're not vaccinating your child next. Right? So this was pointed out multiple times, and then eventually they have done some fix to that particular problem, but generally the algorithms remain that way. So one is that, so, you know, in terms of social media, the information that you're getting is already selective. You know, the selectivity is not controlled by the government. Now comes the role of the government. The social media, the design of the platform is already such that you will only get selective information. It is not democratic in any which way. But now comes the role of what the government is doing, and how the governments are controlling all these various social media platforms. And I would also like to talk a bit about India's geopolitical sort of stature at this point in time, and how that is influencing this whole thing. Now, where do these companies sit? Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, all of these are sitting in America, right? Each one of this is an American company. Now, America considers China an adversary. From a purely money point of view, China is a growing power, and America doesn't like that. Of course, there are a lot of problems in China. We are not discussing geopolitics here, but essentially, America sees China as an adversary, and that is where India becomes an important ally for America, because then it is the other important power in this Asian, South Asian area, where sort of being friends with India is important for the US, so that China, whatever danger it poses, that can be sort of dealt with in some manner. Now, this is influencing a lot of what the social media policies that we are seeing. India is at an advantage, where it is ensuring that all these American companies follow a diktat, and there is no support from the American government as such. If these private companies which were there in the US had to even be slightly ethical or moral, for them they would have needed that backing from the US government, that, oh, go ahead and do that, we have your back. But that is not happening. Many of us keep questioning, right, that, oh, why is no one speaking about why things are happening in India? Why are the foreign powers not speaking about it? This is primarily the reason, the geopolitical, that is my understanding, that the geopolitical space that India currently occupies is ensuring that nobody talks about what's happening in India, and that extends to the policies that these social media companies are following. So recently, just last week, there was a 3-part article in Washington Post. One second, I'll just open some of those articles. So the title of the article in Washington Post, this is dated September 26, 2023. The title of the article is "Under India's Pressure, Facebook Lets Propaganda and Hate Speech Thrive." And it is a long article. You might, those who have access to Washington Post can go through it. But essentially what it is saying is that there is a lot of hate speech that is currently thriving on Indian social media networks, which is against Facebook policies. Facebook policies, while they are a little muddled about misinformation and disinformation, their policies about hate speech are very clear, that you cannot have hate speech on any of these social media networks, whether it is Facebook, whether it is Twitter, whether it is YouTube. They are very clear on that, because these policies are essentially being borrowed from the US policies. They have to ensure that because they are working in Germany, they are working in France, they are working in UK. So they need to have those policies in place that hate speech is not allowed. But that policy is not being implemented in India. So for example, we recently wrote an article. How many of you heard of Monu Manesar? Monu Manesar? Okay, 6-7 of us. So Monu Manesar is a person from Haryana, and what he does is that he's a Gau Rakshak. Monu Manesar is a Gau Rakshak, calls himself a Gau Rakshak. He has active support of the government. What he does is that he will chase vehicles. He'll be in a jeep, and then he will chase another vehicle which allegedly has cow meat, and then he will shoot at the tires of the vehicle which is going in front. The vehicle will tumble, and then he will go and beat that person up. Now, how do I know that? I know that because I saw this on Facebook. I know that because this whole thing is live streamed again and again on Facebook. Facebook is letting a lot of these people do these antics on social media, which is completely against their policy. That is, you cannot promote violence on social media, but it will let a Monu Manesar do the live streams every second day, and this is what they will show, that he is going in a jeep, chasing a vehicle, shooting at people, hitting people, holding people by their hair. These people are apologizing. This whole thing repeats again and again, and that content is not taken down. It has only recently been taken down after we wrote several emails to both Facebook and YouTube, and then just recently the page got taken down, but now he's back with another page. So, but the second article that Washington Post wrote is about on this whole Monu Manesar issue, which is how not only is Facebook letting hate speech thrive on the platforms, they are also turning a complete blind eye when acts of violence are being committed and broadcasted on social media platforms. And they are letting that whole thing happen without doing anything about it. And the reason for that is because the Indian government is completely controlling what gets moderated, what doesn't get moderated. Because any attempt to moderate there's a backlash. In India, if you have to do business right now, Facebook has 10% stake in Reliance's Jio, Google has 5% stake in Reliance's Jio. So besides doing their own business in India, they are also investing heavily in these big companies. And for them to be able to do business in India, they have to be friends with the government. And the only way to be friends with the government is allowing them to let them run their propaganda as they are, and ensuring that anything which goes against is not shown. So that is how they are controlling social media. Social media by design is already selective in what you see, but when you then add a government which ensures that all the hate speech and all the violence continues to thrive and is not taken down, it takes the problem to another scale. So we have social media controlled, we have mainstream media controlled. Now the third is messaging apps, your WhatsApp, etc. Now that is the space where you would think, Acha, how will they control WhatsApp? because WhatsApp is, there's no algorithm, you see things chronologically, ek ke baad ek ke baad ek. There's no algorithm controlling what you see on WhatsApp. So then how do they control messaging? And WhatsApp is probably one of the biggest sources of information that we have. That they're controlling purely by muscle. So the third part of this Washington Post article is where reporters of Washington Post go to Karnataka during the recently concluded Karnataka elections, and they have, Washington Post has reported that there were 150,000 social media workers just for one election. 150,000 workers, BJP workers, just working to create material and distribute it on WhatsApp networks. So where, and BJP is clearly the richest party in this country right now. So where you can't control by power, then you control by muscle, then you control by just the amount of money you have. You just put so many people down there, you hire organizations which specialize in doing this, and that is how you ensure that a majority of what you see on WhatsApp is also selective. So that is how the means of information are controlled. Now, what do we do about this? The question is, now that we realize that what we see is completely controlled, what do we do about it? I think the first step is to realize this. The first step is to know that all the information that you're getting is not free information. It is strategically placed information. So, a quick example of that would be when COVID happened. And COVID happened, and suddenly, many of you heard about this little mosque in Delhi where there were some Muslim, what's the name of that place? Tablighi. Yeah, the Tablighi Jamaat. There was a Tablighi Jamaat mosque. Nizamuddin. So there were people who had come from different parts of the world. The COVID has already started there, and they came to this one place where I think they had a 7 to 14 day some sort of a training program. I don't know what the phrase for that is. And because they had come from different parts of the world, some of them were already carrying COVID, and because they stayed restricted in this one compound, they gave each other COVID, and then after this they went to different parts of India to preach religion. So they took COVID with them. So from a point of view of a pandemic, it was a serious issue. That people came from outside, brought COVID, the COVID got distributed amongst them, and then they went to other parts of India, they took COVID with them. So it was a serious issue. What media didn't tell you that time, that there was similar Tablighi Jamaat thing which was going to happen in Bombay, and Bombay police said that you cannot hold it, Delhi police said that you can hold it. That is what happened. But despite that, it was a serious issue and should have been spoken about in the news media that this has happened. But that, how was that converted into something very different is what we should understand. This was the same time when a sudden lockdown was imposed. And we saw migrant workers walking back home, migrant workers dying on their way back home. Now, how do you ensure that this migrant worker news doesn't reach you? How do you ensure that thousands and thousands of people who are walking back home, their news doesn't reach you? You use this event. You use the Tablighi Jamaat event, which is a serious event, but you use that and you just show that 24/7 and not show this at all. Because showing this would mean that the lockdown plan was not thought through, that migrant workers walking in thousands and thousands makes the government look bad. So you just show this. You just show that, look, it is because of the Muslims that COVID is spreading in India, to the point that India Today had a graphic where the COVID numbers were represented by a man wearing a skull cap. On TV for multiple days, when they would show COVID numbers, the representative image is a man wearing a skull cap. So and in a short duration of time, here I want to come to the point where how, while the government is controlling both social media and mainstream media, but there is a strategic control on both. That is, what you can't say in mainstream media, say it on social media. What you can't, and then you say it on social media and then you recirculate it in mainstream media. So the news happens, you show something on mainstream media, then somebody will say something on social media. So they will do a news item, oh, some people are saying this on social media, and make this into a mainstream media news. So that is how sort of news happens. So first you start talking about this whole Tablighi Jamaat thing, then on social media there were multiple videos which were put out. Like there was a video where there were a bunch of men in a room which looked like a mosque, and they were doing some action together. It was claimed that they were all sneezing together to spread COVID. Now that is so nonsensical. Can two people sneeze together? Can you and I time our sneezes together? But not just that, what is the point in sneezing, sitting and sneezing in one room if they had to spread COVID, you know? But that was claimed that Muslims are, that is a video which shows Muslims are spreading COVID janbooch ke. The video obviously was old. It had got nothing to do with COVID. It was some Islamic something that was done, but the video was old, before COVID, had got nothing to do with COVID. But many such videos were shared. Now the mainstream media again started picking up these videos and started showing them. Slowly what happened was that because there was such a huge propaganda, and the pandemic times, we were all afraid. We were all so afraid. We didn't know. There was so much uncertainty. In this uncertainty, in this period of uncertainty, when you put hate against a community, that has far-reaching effect than normal times. And soon enough, for example, in Surat, in Gujarat, an audio started circulating that don't buy vegetables from Muslim vendors because they are using fruits to spread COVID. And so started a process of economic boycott. Soon after, in Delhi, one fruit vendor went to an area and उसको बोला कि आधार कार्ड दिखाओ आपका, तो आधार कार्ड दिखाया, मुसलमान था, उसको मारा. So the misinformation turned to economic boycott, turned to physical violence on the street. That is how fast things can go when means of information are controlled. That is, you start, the primary purpose was not to show migrant workers walking back home. It ended up with Muslim vegetable vendors being beaten up and being boycotted. So that is what propaganda does. Now, how do we, if we were in that times, how do we survive this? That is the question, right? We already know what is the stage. How do we survive this? That is where I don't have a complete answer to it, unfortunately, and I don't think any of us will in any nearby time. But I believe that self-education, study circles, that whole culture needs to be brought back, where having realized that we need to empower ourselves. When we know that information is controlled, we need to empower ourselves to know how to look at information, know how to critically analyze information. And to be able to do that, and this becomes an individual responsibility, because the state is not going to do it for you. It is up to us citizens to do it. And that is where I feel that we need to get organize ourselves in whichever way we know how to organize ourselves, but start talking about this, start empowering ourselves. Get a young person in your neighborhood who knows something and get him to teach, how do you look, if this image has come, how do I figure out where this image has come from? If this video has come, how do I figure out where this video has come? Is this true, is this not true? How to look at information, how to look at sources. So it is important to start becoming critical towards the information we receive, teach ourselves, create volunteers within us who know and who can be the go-to individual when we have to figure out. Not everybody can. So I you know, having worked, I clearly know people who are slightly aged, they find it very difficult to deal with the mobile phone, and it is difficult. एक तो font छोटा होता है, दिखता नहीं है, अलग अलग प्रॉब्लम होता है ना, कैसे पता करें कि सच है या झूठ है. लेकिन let's create ecosystems which enable us to go to people and figure out, hey, something is true or not. We have different associations, different communities. Let's start creating associations where at least someone is empowered to give some answers. But besides that, in terms of what we are doing as an organization in Calcutta right now, we are creating a curriculum around media and information literacy, which we are trying to teach children, which looks at how to look at biases, how to look at all of these things, business or social media, business media. So we are attempting to create that curriculum, and hopefully within a year it will see the light of the day. But meanwhile, I think it's up to all of us individually. Thank you.
Firstly, I have a parent of a 13-year-old who just yesterday mentioned to us that social studies is a very new study, and I'm sure most of us science-oriented students felt the same in school. To help such kids become aware, to make them understand the importance of knowing what is right and wrong, and also considering fake news is penetrating in a very clandestine manner or in a very direct manner to textbooks also, and especially the social studies textbooks. How do you encourage such demotivated children who are already not interested in studying social studies to invest thought in knowing what is right and wrong in studying? That's my first question. Second question is, after your talk, I felt very pessimistic, have we reached a point of no return, especially considering money is involved, especially considering there are big heads who are contributing to the propaganda media, not so much to the independent media like you or News Laundry, etc. Have we reached a point of no return? Do we have no hope? Is BJP going to continue forever like this with the kind of lack of hope that we are seeing today? These are the two questions. Thank you.
I'll start with the second one. That's easier than the first one. No, I don't think there is no hope. Otherwise, there's no point for me to come all the way here and talk if there is no hope, right? The point is to realize that there are issues and things are grim in terms of what we are seeing. But I think that realization is also important to know what to do next or what we need to do next. For me, the realization is that I cannot depend on the state to do something for me. I have to depend, on individuals, on collectives to do something. And yeah, it is not an easy situation as far as the news ecosystem, as the information ecosystem is concerned. Is definitely not an easy solution, but it is not something that cannot be dealt with. Just recently, we started in December of 2022, we started creating this curriculum for children, class 7, 8, 9. And just three days back, there is this small school in about 2 hours from Kolkata, where we taught a bunch of children, and they really internalized all the concepts. They figured out what media is, what media theory is, and all of that. So looking at that, for me, that is a great hope that if children of the age 12, 13, 14 are able to grasp these concepts so well as to, how social media works, how media works, and all of that, how to look at sources. We have one exercise there where we teach them how to look at sources. These days, the most thing that is misused is some sources have said this. Now, we don't know which source has said this. We don't know whether there's a source exist or not. Does one such source exist or not? So then we do a activity with them where we say, we make children stand in line. We say, okay, you are one of them is home ministry, one of them is this ministry, and then we give them pieces of information which they have to go and verify. So they have to figure out, oh, I have this information, how do I go and verify this information? So they have to figure out which sources they have to go to get the information from. And the children sort of took to that activity / game in such a manner. They figured out that, oh, I have to go to one source. Then they figured out, oh, there can be multiple sources. So if what I'm attempting to say is that while these subjects look difficult, they are not difficult. Each one of us, if we put in some effort, we can figure out how to deal with a toxic information ecosystem. But that effort is needed. It is not going to happen automatically. The first question is a pedagogical question. I'm not equipped to answer a pedagogical question. that how do you get students to become more interested in social studies. But the issue of textbooks having misinformation, that is a political battle. If one government comes, education is also a space for political battle. So if one government comes, they put one thing, another government comes, another thing. So the only expectation is if the second government comes, they reverse what the first government has done. But other than that, where the control of a textbook is, it's the complete control is with the government. We as individuals, there's very little we can do, except for maybe look at textbooks, take teachers as a collective and publish our own errata maybe, and say that look, this is the kind of misinformation. There can be some reportage on it, some awareness issues on it, but beyond that, I'm not sure what exactly to do about it. I can't hear you.
Sir, first of all, thank you so much for creating an organic platform to debunk the fake news, which is destroying the country. So my question is, before 2014, anchors like Sudhir Chaudhary or Arnab Goswami, they were not bad, if not good, but at least they were not
This bad.
Yeah. So what happened suddenly after 2014 that they have completely changed? Number one. And the second thing is, why are they not scared at all? Or why are they so shameless that in case they're not scared of the repercussions? Like in case in 2024 or 2029, in case BJP doesn't come, or in case some other government comes into power, they might have to face the repercussions, right? Why are they not scared about that? At least if they are not responsible, why are they not scared?
I think to the first part of your question, I think they have become more emboldened because of state support. It's you see each one of them. Mr. Modi has this Diwali Mela every year where the journalists are invited, and which faces will be invited, which faces won't be invited, right? So each one of these, from Sudhir Chaudhary to Arnab Goswami to Navika Kumar to all of them, will be there in that conference, shaking hands with the Prime Minister, taking selfies, never asking a question. So one, obviously, you can see there's an ideological leaning that they have, natural ideological leaning. Second, there is state support, that they know that things cannot go wrong. At least for now, things are as they are. And politically, probably they also believe that politically things are not going to change, that politically things are going to remain the same. But I think that would be a misunderstanding. That politically things will not ever change. That thing, that could be a misunderstanding.
Thank you, Pradeep, for that wonderful talk. My question is related to the solution part. How do you look at the artificial intelligence as a source for checking the fake news? We know that there are a lot of bots that will also create a lot of fake news. There is a challenge, but there can also be an opportunity. That's one part of the question. The other one is related to the regulation part. Why don't we as a civic society put a lot of pressure on the government to break the regulation to check on the fake news or the falsehood of the news, disinformation and so on. What are the risks that are involved in bringing such regulation or criminalizing fake news and so on? Thank you.
So the first part, as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, having been a software engineer, my understanding is that artificial intelligence works on existing data sets. It learns from existing data sets to be able to respond to certain questions. Now, the misinformation world, new misinformation is being churned every single day. So, for example, when the Orissa train accident happened, immediately it was claimed that the station master was Muslim, right? And that propaganda was run. Now, artificial intelligence is, it is not based on newer data sets, it's based on whatever is there. So, if you ask a machine, hey, was the station master in Orissa Muslim? artificial intelligence will have no response to it. So that is where I feel that artificial intelligence fails, because misinformation is always context specific. What we see is that every event, the narrative is controlled. So when farmers' protests are happening, everything is around farmers' protests. When the Russia-Ukraine war is happening, when one child gets killed in Ukraine, then all the narrative building is around that how to safeguard the government at that point in time. So artificial intelligence doesn't have access to real-time data, and which is why I don't think it can really help in terms of misinformation, the kind of misinformation we see today. It may help in kind of repetitive misinformation, which keeps repeating that Nehru did not visit Bhagat Singh in jail, for example. If someone claims that Nehru did not visit Bhagat Singh in jail, which the Prime Minister claimed, then probably there it will help, because that misinformation just keeps getting repeated, so there will be a store. But anything which is new, I believe artificial intelligence will not be able to respond to that. The second question was regulation. So regulation, though, it is going ulta, right? So recently government came up with something called PIB fact checking unit, and it's new in its new IT rules. It says that they are going to check facts, and what this PIB fact checking unit, Press Information Bureau fact checking unit, if it deems that information is false, then social media has to take it down. So government is actually, we started our fact checking as an organization. Government is like, you forget fact checking, we will do our own fact checking now. So and that is very, very problematic, because not only we know how this government functions, but the second problem is that we have actually flagged multiple places where PIB fact check has been wrong. There have been wrong fact checks. For example, when the migrant worker trains were brought out, and at least 6-7 people died on those trains, if some of you may recall. And then each news media reports came out that these people died. PIB fact check says all of these media reports are misleading, because all of them had long-term illnesses, and that is why they died on the trains. We contacted each one of their families. All of them said none of them had long-term illnesses. This death is because of whatever, the journey, the exhaustion and all of that, but not because of long-term illnesses. So PIB fact check is not only, it is selective, it is also putting out wrong information. So as far as regulation is concerned, again, anything that, see, the point is, the ultimate agenda is to control the information ecosystem. Control what is considered truth and what is not considered truth. Whether that is actually factual or not, but it has to be their version of the truth. So the policies will be made in accordance, so that their version of the truth comes out as the truth, essentially. Huge. So this, YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels and all of that kind of media, where you can just keep scrolling, right, for hours. You watch one, then you scroll, you watch one, you scroll. And I have told some of I'm from Ahmedabad, so I have some friends from NID that ab design walon ne hum log ka jeena haram kar diya hai, because this action, it has made things so easy. Just do this and go to another piece of information. It is a full screen video. There's no information elsewhere. You watch it and you go to the next video. You watch it and you go to the next video. So there is no space even to give context. Let's say if you watch a normal YouTube video, at least you can see the caption. In this short form video, you cannot see anything. You just see the video, and then it's the next video, and then it's the next video and the next video. And you keep watching, you keep consuming information without a break, without even attempting to think what is the veracity of the information. So YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, etc. have become a huge problem, because it is very difficult to give context. If you have a YouTube video, you can go and check in the comment section, hey, is this true or not? Here they made it far more difficult to go and check the comment section. So I believe all these innovations, again, all these innovations are to maximize our time on social media. With very little thought on what it will do to the information ecosystem. Their only agenda is how much more time will you spend on your phone devices, essentially.
Hi. My question is regarding the medium of what alt news functions in. So a large percentage of propaganda that I am a witness to in, let's say, my family and others is in Telugu, and there is a lot of people invested in creating this content in Telugu, and they cannot access information that comes from portals like alt news. So what is your plan or alt news's plan into expanding into regional languages where a huge, because the primary, a huge percentage of consumers of, potential consumers of this kind of information don't understand, let's say, Hindi or English. They consume it in a different language.
Yeah.
So do you have plans regarding this, and what do you think should other news portals do in this respect?
We have been trying to make plans forever about coming out in other languages. It's just very difficult. We have an issue regarding a finance crunch, and if somebody could donate to Alt News, please do donate to Alt News. But we have an issue regarding finance crunch. But what is happening increasingly is that some YouTubers are taking our content and creating videos. So we are hoping that more of that will happen. We have put our content, the license is Creative Commons, so anybody can take our content and create their own content out of it. We do not have any intellectual property sort of limitations on it. So there are so many now YouTubers in local languages who are looking for content, and we are saying that you take our content and create videos out of it. So we are hoping that that will become one of the vehicles to sort of propagate this information.
I wanted to ask you one thing. As a person, I would like to actually receive news that is from both sides, right? And you yourself have just explained how by liking something, you tend to get the same kind of news. And on the other hand, there are a large number of upcoming independent journalists and so on who are actually creating alternative news and so on. So when I like them, again I'm going to be getting one kind of news, right? And so how does one really address this? That is one. The second is actually an appeal that I would like to make. ఇక్కడ అందరికీ కూడా ఒక అపీల్ చేయాలనుకుంటున్నాను. మనము ఇప్పుడు అభిసహా వినడాన్ని బట్టి మనం దీంట్లో ఎంత పెద్ద రోల్ ప్లే చేస్తున్నాం అనేది కూడా తెలుస్తుంది కాబట్టి కనీసం మన అందరూ కూడా అట్లీస్ట్ ఉన్నవాళ్ళు మనకు తెలిసిన వాళ్ళలో ఈ మెయిన్ స్ట్రీమ్ టీవీ మీడియా లాంటి వాళ్ళని కొంచెం మనం బాయ్కాట్ చేయొచ్చని నేను అనుకుంటున్నాను. వై యూ హ్యావ్ టు స్విచ్ ఆన్ ద టీవీ అండ్ వాచ్ ద సేమ్ న్యూస్ ఛానల్స్. సో అట్లీస్ట్ మనకు తెలిసిన వాళ్ళలో అట్లీస్ట్ ఈ టీవీ ఛానల్స్ మనం ఫైనలీ టీఆర్పీ అవన్నీ మన చేతిలో ఉంది కదా ఆయుధము. సో వీలైనంత వరకు వేరే ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ న్యూస్ ఛానల్ సోర్సెస్ ని సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేయడం, డొనేట్ చేయడం, ఇలాంటివి మనం చేయగలిగితే కొంచెం వీళ్ళు కూడా నాట్ జస్ట్ లైక్ కొంచెం ఎంతో కనుక 50 రూపాయలు 100 రూపాయలు ఇంతమంది మనం చేయగలిగితే బాగుంటుంది అని ఈ సదస్సు ద్వారా నేను చెప్పాను. థ్యాంక్స్.
Oh, thank you. What was your question again, quickly?
No, I was just saying, how does one really receive this?
Okay, no, sir. I just want to clarify. So the liking thing is based on topics. It is not that if you like one page, when you like one page, then you're clearly indicating to Facebook, show me more of this. What I was attempting to say when I say like is topic based. So let's say Facebook will also figure out that if a news is about a certain subject, then it'll show you more of that subject. It doesn't have to be necessarily from that particular page or news organization. So when you go and like something, then you're expressly indicating that I want more of this. So then it will show you more of that, right? Because you're liking a particular news organization, then you're indicating that give me more of that content. So then if you want more varied, then you follow more news pages. But what I was trying to say that when Facebook monitors your behavior, that is topic wise, that is what subjects are you following more in that way and serve you more of that kind of information.